was a lot of confusion about this test. But here's the key issue. I expect that the officers will admit that rather than take him to do a breath test, he immediately said, "Look, I want a blood test. I trust Hamilton Medical Center. Take me there. Let's do it there." And that's exactly what they did. They agreed to do that. All right? But they were going to ask for breath, and they accommodated him. They've admitted to that using that word. They accommodated his request. But what they ultimately did was not a Hamilton test. They took him to Hamilton, let Hamilton take the blood out, but Hamilton didn't do the testing. And that's exactly what my client was asking for, an objective, the objective personnel there, along with it being done immediately. And when you listen to the tape, you will hear my client say, "Well, if I pass this test tonight, what are you going to do? If my blood result comes back less than the amount, what are you going to do?" And the officers don't really respond to him because he's under the impression that it's going to get tested that very night. But it doesn't. The person there takes his blood, then gives it to the officer in vials. The vials are then taken into custody by the Dalton police, sit almost a month at the Dalton police station, then are mailed to the crime lab, who likewise sit on it for about a month. And then they finally get around to testing. And lo and behold, you have this high blood level. My client will tell you, and I expect their own expert to admit to this, that there is a reason that blood is frozen, or refrigerated rather. It's refrigerated because it's organic material. And if it sits without any oxygen, it will ferment, and it will turn into alcohol, and thus elevate the original reading. They will tell you that refrigeration may slow that down, but refrigeration doesn't eliminate it. My client wanted to be tested then and there that night so that there wouldn't be any fermentation, there wouldn't be any exaggerated growth in it. But he wasn't. But that's what I think the evidence will show that they had told him that they were going to do. You will hear the crime lab person, I expect, testify that one thing you can do to keep that from happening is put some sodium, I believe it's fluoride, it's sodium something, into it, and that will help not let it ferment. They didn't do that in this case. Unless, I don't see it anywhere in the reports. If I'm wrong on that, I'll be happy to admit it after seeing the evidence, but I don't believe that they used that preservative. So the blood aged some 2 months, almost 2 months before it was tested. And it fermented on some unknown level, and that explains the reading. Now, the evidence will show that had they done it, what they had told my client they were going to do, Hamilton Medical Center would have done the testing, we would have known that night what the reading was. And because they didn't, now we don't know what the original reading was. And obviously, if the breath test, we would have known what that said that night. All right? But that wasn't, that wasn't done. They agreed not. They agreed to accommodate my client by getting the blood test. So anyway, I hope that makes sense to you. The term, and you'll hear me talk about this just a little bit, but just to kind of warn you about it, is indigenous alcohol production. That's just another word for this fermentation. Indigenous alcohol production is when any organic material is sealed off without oxygen. Then it basically ferments and produces alcohol. So that'll be what we're talking about when I start asking questions from the crime lab. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you listening to me. Again, I've done my best to catch up on everything, and I think I've seen some fresh things that hopefully will add to your hearing of the case. Thank y'all.